when the temples are being marketed, I think, like by missionaries and stuff, and I think by people in the church who are trying to like explain temples to their friends and stuff, because a lot of like the ritualistic stuff is very off-putting, like that doesn't get really mentioned, and people talk about temples as being just these beautiful places where people get married and where like families get to do these things so that they can be together forever. Like they really talk them up like it's this great, wonderful like place to be, and it's really calm and peaceful, and like basically I think the term they use is like the closest place to heaven on earth. And we're gonna completely shatter that perspective, because it is not at all that nice.
Hold on to your horses, guy.
Well,
guys.
I remember on my mission, it's one of those things that
a bit culty.
It's one of those things that you can't really tell them exactly what it is, otherwise they'll get scared off pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You got to really ease people into that.
Yeah, I remember being a missionary and people asking questions, and I'd be like, it's the house of the Lord. It's just a really spiritual place.
You'll love it. Let's go to the temple grounds. Let's have a look at the temple grounds. You'll love the gardens. The gardening is very
green ants.
Exquisite, yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about. Okay, so I think we should also, before we get into like the preparation, go into the temple, like the interview process and all of that. I think it's important to just like touch on why people go to the temple, like what are the things that happen in there. So like in Mormonism, you follow what's called like a covenant path, right? So it starts at baptism. So normally members, when they're 8 years old, so 8 is supposed to be the age of accountability. At 8 years old, you're supposed to decide if you want to be part of the church or not. And of course, every 8-year-old brought up in the church is going to say yes, because that's what they've been brainwashed to want to do. So, it starts with baptism. And then the next one up from that is like basically this initiation thing before you go through to get your endowments, which is like, supposed to be these blessings and covenants you make with God so that you can receive all of these promised blessings. And essentially, like, you have to do all of that to be eligible for exaltation, which is like, getting the highest degree of glory in heaven when you die, basically, and allows you to become a god and make your own earths and do all of that cool stuff. So the reason that people go to the temple, for themselves, is to do that. And then the other really important thing that happens in temples is work for the dead. So you might have heard people saying that they baptize dead people in the temple.
They don't actually dig up the dead people.
No. They're not like digging up corpses and throwing them underwater. No, baptisms. I mean, no, people. So generally the youth, so from the time you're about 12, you can go and do baptisms for the dead in the temple, which basically, like, you, the person, is standing in place of a dead person. And yeah, so that's why the church is really big. Basically, like, the idea is that you can do all of these ordinances for your departed ancestors, and that means that anybody who didn't get the chance to be part of the church in their earth life will get the chance in the afterlife to become part of God's family, in that, receiving all of those ordinances and stuff so that they can be exalted. Because, otherwise they're just kind of floating about in, not like, what do they call
spiritual
it?
prison.
Spiritual prison, that's it, yeah. And until you have all of those, like, ordinances ticked off, you can't get out of spirit prison. So
straight to jail.
That's why, yeah. So that is why the Mormons do a lot of genealogy work. It's that they can find names to take to the temple so that they can do those things for them, so that those people who have passed can have the opportunity to get on that covenant path and return back to Heavenly Father and receive celestial glory and all of that nice stuff. So yeah, and the other thing I think I forgot to mention as well is that like baptisms for the dead happen in the temple, but baptisms for the living happen in meeting places. So which is interesting
that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, because every other ordinance you do, so like the initiatory and the endowment and sealings, which is where you get married, all of those happen in a temple. So yeah. So did we want to talk about?
It's a cool little fun fact about some of these processes. So we mentioned that from 8 years old, a kid can choose to be baptized because they are of age. Now, from 12 years old, kids can choose to be baptized on behalf of dead people. From 16 years old, these teenagers have been given the authority to baptize other kids in not in the temple for the dead, but normal baptism. They've been given the authority to do that. So you got a bunch of kids choosing to be baptized by other kids.
Yeah.
Just think about that for a minute.
Yeah.
It's all about helping the youth to learn responsibility.
Yeah.
And, just prepares them for like, the more insane promises they're going to make later on.
And so one of my younger brothers just turned 16, and recently my family did a little temple trip, and I remember talking to my mom and she was like, "Oh, your brother got to baptize your sister-in-law in the temple. It was such a spiritual moment. I'm so proud of him." And I was like, cool
story, bro.
Sounds great. Yeah, I was like,
good for you.
Awesome. They had a bath together. Fantastic.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and for people who might not know like the Mormon baptism process, it's not like in other churches where they just like splash some water on your head. Like they fully immerse your body. Like you're
in these
you
like
gotta get
white,
everything
this white
under.
jumpsuit,
yeah,
all white, and you get dunked, fully dunked.
Women have to wear white hair ties too.
And
I
if
remember
you don't,
like the little basket of hair ties in the change room.
Yeah.
And if you don't go completely under, they have to do it again. Like
And you
even if
can't
you
wear
got a
underwear.
toe, they give you white underwear for the guys.
Do they?
You get underwear?
Yeah, if in the temple you get given little white underwear to wear, so that way things aren't splashing around.
Yeah, well,
what?
We get the like undersuit, like the onesie thing, remember?
Yeah.
You mean the scrap material? Man, mine never
This is
fit.
white
It was
jumpsuits.
always awkward.
It looks like a really old, like from the 1960s sort of like swimsuit. Like that's the cut of the like undergarment thing. Like,
and you either got them in a size too big or a size too small.
Yeah.
They're never the right size, ever.
Awful.
And I remember like lining up as a teenager waiting to get like these baptism jumpsuits, and the sisters would be like, "What size are you?" And you'd be like, "I don't know." And you'd have to stand there for 5 minutes while they like hold up the jumpsuits. Yeah, and it was always like super quiet.
They've got to whisper. Always a whisper.
You have to.
You can't talk normally in the temple.
Yeah, because you got to keep everything very, very reverent. So always
You're not allowed to
whisper.
laugh. No laughing in the temple. God doesn't
No
want
loud
any
laughter.
laughing.
Allowed at
No
all.
fun.
Yeah.
That was always so hard when I went to the temple with you, Sister Donna.
Yeah.
So you can actually look up photos online. So if you're interested, have a look up Mormon temple photos. So when you're doing baptism, so the chapel is pretty boring. It's just a font. It's got a glass front on it, so everyone can stand around and watch you get dunked. But when you go into the temple, they have all this symbolism. So I think they're changing now as the temple gets smaller, but traditionally it's this massive bathtub on top of all these these 12 oxen representing the 12 tribes, and 12 tribes of Israel, which is the Bible stuff. So it's this big elaborate thing, and it's a big round room, and there's a giant chandelier above it, and then someone sits there and has all these cards with names on them to do these ordinances, and they put it in this little projector, and you got one person that's just says a name, dunk, says a name, dunk, says a name, dunk, and it's just repetitive for a couple of hours. And then you get out, and it's absolutely freezing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the font water is actually quite nice. Like they keep it's warmed, so you go in and it's just like this nice warm like bathtub, and then you get out and it's just cold air conditioned like bathroom and like everywhere. Like it's just freezing.
And like the sister always holds the towel up over the end of the staircase because it's like all white. It's kind of see-through. So she just hold it up so like nobody sees you like.
I want to see the boobies, and then that's why the guys get given underwear, so there's nothing else to be seen when they're getting out.
Yeah.
especially all these hormonal boys looking at girls' boobies as they're getting out.
I didn't even think of that.
Things get interesting.
Oh god.
Oh gosh. Okay,
I might even post some photos this week on some social medias, so keep your eye out for that. I'll post some photos of what it looks like and some of these garments and jumpsuits that we're talking about. I'll post them there so you can have a good old laugh with us.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay, so shall we talk about so the process like before you go to the temple, like what is required and like the whole purity interview and all of that? Do you want to talk about that, Brother Hiram?
Sister May, I'm going to ask you some questions, okay?
Oh dear, right? Yes.
I'm going to ask you some questions.
Okay. So, as my priesthood leader?
Just pretend I'm your bishop, all right?
Oh dear, okay,
now,
yes.
You're in my office. Door is closed. Nobody else is around. Let's say you're 13.
Sounds safe.
And you're in the office just with me. Now, do you have faith in and a testimony of God?
In my brain. Oh God, I hope that he doesn't have the spirit of discernment. Yes, I have faith. Definitely.
The Lord has said that all things are to be done in cleanliness before him. Do you strive for moral cleanliness in your thoughts and behavior? And do you obey the law of chastity?
In my brain. Shit, what was that Wattpad book I was reading last night? Yes, Bishop, I'm
and then Bishop's
clean.
Like, oh, actually, do you understand the law of chastity? Let's talk about this. Do you look at pornography? Do you masturbate? Do you touch yourself? Do you do anything sexual with other people? Do you talk to people online sexually? This is actually legit stuff that you get asked. So
yeah,
the rest
of it, like I remember specifically, like every time I would have the interview to go to the temple, because as a youth as well, I think you have to get a temple like recommend every time you go.
It's 12. Is it 12 months?
Yeah, it lasts for 12 months.
Well, I think okay. I thought we had to do it more often. I feel like I had so many of those interviews. I don't know.
I feel like a lot of people talked about a situation, and so Bishop was like, let's have a chat.
Right. Okay. Well, anyways, I remember a lot, I remember them every time the question about the law of chastity came up, he would ask me to explain what the law of chastity meant to me to check my understanding. And I'm like, Bishop, I've had this conversation with you 5 times. I haven't I was right all of those other times. Why do you keep have to pressing on this point?
I'm
a teenage
specific.
girl. I'm not gonna, and I'm also not gonna admit to you in this closed room where you're assessing my worthiness to go to the temple. I'm not going to admit to you here that I've been touching myself or whatever. It's just not going to happen.
It's just this is one of the other
gives me the
big problems. Is why are you asking young teenagers if they masturbate and look at porn?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wildly inappropriate.
Yeah. It's
even worse because my dad was the bishop for most of my teen years, so my dad got to ask me if I masturbate and watch porn. I was a Wattpad teenager, so I was definitely reading those werewolf porns. Like, I was in the thick of it, but there was no